Real mysteries buried in time. I found the box in my dead grandmother's attic on Tuesday afternoon, and by Friday, 3 people were dead. My name is Samuel Clarke, and I'm about to tell you something that will make you question everything you think you know about history, about truth, about the very fabric of reality itself. I'm nobody. A freelance journalist who writes listicles for websites that pay 3 cents per word. I live in a studio apartment in Baltimore that smells like the Chinese restaurant downstairs. I'm 32 years old, single, unremarkable in every conceivable way. But 4 months ago, I stumbled into something that changed everything. Something that powerful people have killed to keep secret. Something that, if I'm honest, I wish I'd never found. But I did find it. And now I can't unwind it. And neither will you, once you hear this story. My grandmother's name was Evelyn Clarke. She died at 93, alone in her Victorian house in upstate New York, in a town called Millbrook that most people have never heard of. We weren't close. I saw her maybe 3 times in my adult life. She was cold, distant, the kind of woman who corrected your grammar at funerals. When my mother called to tell me Evelyn had passed, I felt nothing. No grief. No loss. Just a vague obligation to attend the funeral and help clean out her house. The house was massive. 3 stories of dark wood and dark memories. My mother had grown up there and hated every minute of it. She refused to set foot inside after the funeral, so the job of sorting through 70 years of accumulated belongings fell to me. Lucky me. I arrived on a Monday morning in late September. The leaves were just starting to turn. That brief window upstate New York looked like a postcard. The house loomed at the end of a long gravel driveway, surrounded by oak trees that had probably been there since before the Civil War. It looked like the kind of place where bad things happened. I wasn't wrong. The interior was exactly what you'd expect. Antique furniture is covered in white sheets. Portraits of stern-faced ancestors whose eyes seem to follow you. The scent of old houses, musty, dusty, and aged. I stood in the foyer for a long moment, trying to figure out where to even start. The lawyer who'd handled Evelyn's estate had given me a key and a folder full of documents. Most of it was standard stuff. Bank accounts. Property deeds. Insurance policies. But there was one page that caught my attention. An inventory of valuable items, prepared by an appraiser who'd visited the house 6 months before Evelyn died. Most of it was unremarkable. China. Silver. Furniture. But at the bottom, handwritten in different ink, as if added later, was a single line, attic storage chest. Contents unknown. Client refused access. Client refused access. That was interesting. Why would Evelyn prevent an appraiser from looking in a storage chest? What was she hiding? I found myself climbing the stairs to the 2nd floor, then the narrow staircase to the 3rd floor, then finally the pull-down ladder that led to the attic. The space was low-ceilinged and sweltering, even in September. Boxes and trunks were stacked everywhere, decades of accumulation that nobody had bothered to sort through. And there, in the far corner, underneath a tarp and hidden behind a dress form wearing a moth-eaten wedding gown, was the chest. It was old. Really old. Made of dark wood with iron bands and a heavy padlock that looked medieval. The kind of chest you'd expect to find on a pirate ship or in a castle dungeon. I pulled it out into the light and examined the lock. It was engaged, but the metal was rusted. I found a crowbar in one of the boxes and, after about 10 minutes of work, managed to break it open. The hinges screamed as I lifted the lid. And inside, wrapped in layers of oilcloth that crumbled at my touch, were things that shouldn't exist. The first item I unwrapped was a leather journal. The cover was cracked and stained, the pages yellowed and brittle. I opened it carefully, and my heart started beating faster as I read the first entry. March 7, 1889. Philadelphia. We have succeeded. After 18 months of excavation, we found the chamber. Dr. Harrison's calculations were correct. The ruins do extend beneath the city, far deeper than anyone suspected. And what we found there. I can barely bring myself to write it. Evidence of a civilization that predates everything we know. Architecture that shouldn't be possible with primitive tools. Writing in a language that resembles no known script. And artifacts. God help us, the artifacts. The entry was signed Edward Clarke. Clarke. My surname. I flipped through the journal, my hands shaking. Entry after entry, dated throughout 1889 and into 1890, describing an archaeological expedition beneath Philadelphia. An expedition that had found something impossible. Evidence of an advanced civilization existing in North America thousands of years before the accepted historical record. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. What made my blood run cold was the final entry, dated December 15, 1890. They are killing us. One by one. Anyone who knows about the chamber, anyone who saw what we found, they are being eliminated. Harrison is dead. They called it suicide, but I know better. Patterson disappeared 3 weeks ago. Collins died in a fire that consumed his home and all his research. I am the last one on the left. I have hidden the artifacts, scattered them in places they will never think of looking. And I have created a map. A guide. Encrypted in a way that only someone with the right knowledge can decode. If you are reading this, if you have found this journal, then you are family. You are blood. And you must decide. Will you let the truth stay buried? Or will you risk everything to bring it to light? They will come for you. They came for me. They will come for anyone who seeks to reveal what they have hidden. But the truth matters. More than safety. More than life. Remember that. The truth matters. I sat back on my heels, the journal in my lap, my mind racing. This was insane. This had to be a hoax. Some kind of elaborate prank or creative writing exercise. But the journal was old. I could tell that much. The paper, the ink, the binding, all of it was genuinely aged. And Edward Clarke. I'd heard that name before. My mother had mentioned him once. He was my great-great-grandfather. I am a professor of archaeology at the University of Pennsylvania in the late 1800s. He died young. 43 years old. The family story was that he had a heart attack in his study. But what if that wasn't true? What if he'd been murdered, like the others he mentioned in the journal? I looked back into the chest. There were more items. A rolled-up piece of canvas that turned out to be an old map of Philadelphia, covered in strange markings and annotations. A small wooden box containing what looked like coins, except the metal was wrong, the images stamped on them were wrong, the writing around the edges was in no language I recognized. A series of photographs, the old kind, sepia-toned and mounted on cardboard, showing the interior of what looked like underground tunnels. And people. Men in Victorian clothing standing next to stone walls covered in intricate carvings. And at the very bottom of the chest, wrapped in layers of silk that had long since rotted, was something that made me stop breathing. It was a skull. Human, but wrong. The proportions were off. The cranium was too large, too elongated. The eye sockets were bigger than they should be, set slightly wider apart. The jaw was more delicate, the teeth smaller and more uniform. I'm not an expert in human anatomy, but I'd seen enough skulls in museums to know what a normal human skull looked like. This wasn't normal. I dropped it back into the chest and scrambled backward, my heart hammering. This was too much. This was way beyond anything I was equipped to handle. I should close the chest. I should walk away. I should call someone. An anthropologist. A historian. Hello, the police. But even as I thought these things, another part of my brain was already working. Already planning. Because if this was real, if any of this was real, it was the story of a lifetime. It was the story of a century. Evidence of a pre-Columbian civilization in North America? Artifacts that suggested advanced technology? A conspiracy to suppress the truth that had lasted more than 100 years. This was bigger than listicles about the 10 best pizza toppings. This was Pulitzer Prize material. This was career-making. Life-changing. This was dangerous. I carefully repacked everything into the chest. I closed the lid. I carried it down from the attic, down the stairs, out to my car. I put it in my trunk, covered it with a blanket, and stood there in the driveway for a long moment, my hands trembling. I should walk away. I should leave this buried. Edward Clarke had warned me. They will come for you. They came for me. They will come for anyone who seeks to reveal what they have hidden. But I didn't walk away. Because I'm an idiot. Or because I'm brave. Or because I'm ambitious. Or because, deep down, I believe that the truth matters. More than safety. More than life. I got in my car and drove back to Baltimore. And I started digging. The first thing I did was research Edward Clarke. It wasn't easy. Records from the 1890s aren't exactly digitized, and a lot of what I needed was buried in university archives and historical societies. But I'm good at research. It's basically the only skill I have. I found Edward's obituary in the Philadelphia Inquirer, dated December 18, 1890. The cause of death was listed as sudden cardiac failure. He left behind a wife and 2 young daughters. There was no mention of his archaeological work. No mention of any expedition. Just a brief, perfunctory notice about a professor who died young. But I also found something else. A small article from March 1889, buried in the local news section. Archaeological excavation underway beneath Society Hill. It described a project led by Dr. Edward Clarke and Dr. Malcolm Harrison of the University of Pennsylvania. They discovered what they believed to be pre-colonial ruins during the construction of a new building and had received permission to conduct a limited excavation before the site was filled in and built over. The article was dated March 10, 1889. 3 days after Edward's first journal entry. So far, his story has checked out. I searched for Malcolm Harrison. Found his obituary too. Died June 3, 1890. Cause of death, suicide by hanging. The obituary noted that Dr. Harrison had been recently suffering from melancholic disposition and had been under the care of a physician. His death was ruled self-inflicted. No mention of any scandal or controversy. I found 2 other names in Edward's journal. Patterson and Collins. It took me longer to track them down, but I eventually found them. Gerald Patterson, a graduate student in anthropology at Penn. Reported missing in October 1890. Never found. And Marcus Collins, a photographer who'd worked with the university. Died in a house fire in November 1890. The fire was ruled accidentally, caused by a knocked-over oil lamp. 4 men. 4 deaths in the span of 6 months. All connected to the same archaeological expedition. And then nothing. No more articles about the excavation. No published papers. No photographs in the university archives. It was like the whole project had been erased from history. I spent 3 days going through Edward's journal line by line, trying to decode his map, examining the photographs with a magnifying glass. The map was the key, I was certain of it. The annotations were in some kind of cipher, but there were also landmarks I recognized. Street names that still existed in Philadelphia. Buildings that were still standing. And a series of numbers that I eventually realized were coordinates. Before I tell you what I did next, if you're invested in this story, if you want to know what I found beneath the streets of Philadelphia, hit that like button. Because what happens next, what I discovered in the darkness under that city, it's something you need to hear. Trust me on this. The coordinates led to a location in the Society Hill neighborhood of Philadelphia. Specifically, beneath a building that now housed a law firm on the ground floor and apartments above. The building dated from the 1890s, built right around the time Edwards' excavation would have been shut down. I drove to Philadelphia on a Friday morning. I didn't have a plan, not really. I just knew I needed to see the location in person. Maybe there'd be a basement. Maybe there'd be some way to access whatever was underneath. The building was narrow, 3 stories of red brick with white trimmed windows. Very Philadelphia. Very normal. I walked around the block twice, trying to figure out my next move. I couldn't exactly walk into a law firm and ask if they had any secret archaeological ruins in their basement. But as I was making my third pass, I noticed something. An alley behind the building. And in that alley, there is a metal door on the ground. A delivery entrance, probably, or access to the utilities. It had a padlock, but it was old and rusted. I waited until dark. I know. Breaking and entering. Trespassing. All very illegal. But I'd come this far. I wasn't turning back now. The alley was deserted at 11 p.m. The lock took about 30 seconds to break with a tire iron. I lifted the metal door, revealing a steep stairway leading down into darkness. I turned on my phone's flashlight and descended. The basement was what you'd expect. Old. Cluttered. Boxes of files and broken furniture. A furnace that looked like it dated from the Eisenhower administration. Pipes and wiring running along the ceiling. Nothing unusual. Nothing that suggested hidden archaeological wonders. But Edwards' coordinates were specific. And according to my GPS, I was standing almost directly on top of them. Which meant whatever he'd found was deeper. Below the basement. I searched for almost an hour, moving boxes, checking walls, looking for any sign of a hidden entrance. And I was about to give up when I noticed something odd. A section of the floor, about 4 feet square, that was slightly different from the rest. The concrete was newer. The color was just a shade lighter. I knelt and examined it more closely. There. Around the edges. A seam. This section had been cut out and replaced at some point. I pressed on it. Solid. But when I knocked on it with my knuckles, it sounded hollow. I went back to my car and got the crowbar. It took me 20 minutes of work to pry up the concrete slab. It was heavy, reinforced, designed to stay in place. But eventually, I got enough leverage to shift it. And beneath it, I found a hole. A shaft leading down into darkness. And set it on the side of the shaft, iron rungs. A ladder. My hands were shaking. My mouth was dry. Every survival instinct I had was screaming at me to close this up and leave. To call the police. To call someone. But I didn't. I climbed down. The shaft went down about 15 feet before opening into a tunnel. The walls were stone. Old stone. Carved stone. And covered in the same kind of markings I'd seen in Edwards' photographs. Geometric patterns. Symbols that looked almost like writing but weren't any alphabet I recognized. And running along the ceiling, carved into the stone itself, a continuous frieze depicting something. People, maybe. Or human-like figures. But elongated. Strange. moving in procession towards something I couldn't quite make out. The tunnel extended in two directions. I chose left, arbitrarily, and started walking. The air was cold and damp and smelled like earth and thyme. My footsteps echoed. The beam of my flashlight seemed pitifully small against the darkness. I walked for what felt like miles but was probably only a few hundred yards. The tunnel sloped gently downward, taking me deeper beneath the city. And then it opened into a chamber. Oh God! The chamber. It was massive. The ceiling must have been 30 feet high, supported by columns carved from the living rock. The walls were completely covered in carvings, floor to ceiling. Intricate, detailed, preserved perfectly by the cool, dry air. And in the center of the chamber, there is a raised platform. And on that platform, arranged in a circle, 7 stone pedestals. 6 of them were empty. But the 7th held something. I approached slowly, my light playing over the object. It was a sphere. About the size of a basketball. Made of some kind of crystal or glass, but with a faint luminescence, like it was generating its own light. Inside the sphere, I could see shapes. Patterns. Moving. Shifting. Like clouds, but geometric. Purposeful. I reached out to touch it. My fingers were an inch away when I heard the voice behind me. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I spun around, my heart exploding. A woman stood at the entrance to the chamber. Mid-40s. Short dark hair. Dressed in black jeans and a leather jacket. She held a gun. Not pointing it at me but holding it. Ready. Who the hell are you? I managed to say. Someone who's been watching you since you left Baltimore with that chest in your trunk. Someone who's been wondering if you're smart enough to walk away or stupid enough to keep digging. Looks like we have our answer. Are you going to kill me? She smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. That depends. Are you going to be reasonable? Define reasonable. Leave. Now. Forget you were ever here. Forget everything in your grandmother's chest. Live your life. Write your listicles. Die peacefully in your sleep 60 years from now. And if I don't? Then you'll die a lot sooner than that. I should have been terrified. And I was. But I was also angry. Who are you people? Who's been covering this up? What is all this? She sighed. You really want to know? You really want to go down this rabbit hole? Because there's no coming back, Samuel. Once you know, once you really know, your life is over. Not because we'll kill you, though we might. But because you'll never be able to unknow it. You'll never be able to pretend the world is what you thought it was. I want to know. She studied me for a long moment. Then she lowered the gun. My name is Claire Hastings. I work for an organization that doesn't officially exist. We've been suppressing knowledge of pre-Columbian advanced civilizations in the Americas for over a century. Not because we're evil. Not because we hate the truth. But because the truth is dangerous. Because the truth would destabilize everything. Because people aren't ready. That's not your decision to make. Isn't it? You think the world would be better off knowing that everything they've been taught about human history is a lie? That there was a civilization in North America, flourishing 15,000 years ago, that was more advanced than anything that came after? That they built cities that would make New York look primitive? That they had technology we still can't replicate? You think people can handle that? Yes. You're wrong. We know because we've tried. In 1891, we let a few artifacts slip into museum collections. Just a few. Nothing too dramatic. You know what happened? Mass hysteria. Religious riots. Universities burned. 3 historians were assassinated by fanatics who thought they were spreading blasphemy. We shut it down fast, but not before 30 people died. So we learned. We learned to keep it buried. To let humanity believe their comfortable lies. You're insane. No. I'm practical. But here's the thing, Samuel. You're not the first person to find Edward Clarke's journal. You're not the first person to follow his map. You're the 9th. And the other 8, well. Let's just say they made poor choices. You killed them. Some of them. Others are still alive. Living under assumed names in places where they can't cause trouble. Heavily medicated. Financially compensated. But alive. I'm making the same choice. Walk away. Right now. We'll relocate you. New identity. New life. Comfortable. Safe. Or keep pushing, and we'll have to take more permanent measures. I looked at the sphere on the pedestal. At the carvings on the walls. At the evidence of something impossible. Something world-changing. And I made my choice. What is it? I asked. The sphere. What does it do? Claire's expression changed. Something like sadness crossed her face. You're not going to walk away, are you? No, then I suppose it doesn't matter if you know. The sphere is a data storage device. The civilization that built this place knew they were dying. Climate change. Catastrophic. Rapid. Their world was ending, and they knew it. So they built these chambers. Dozens of them scattered across the continent. And they stored everything. Their history. Their knowledge. Their technology. Encoded in crystalline matrices that can last millions of years. The sphere you're looking at contains the equivalent of every book ever written, every song ever sung, every piece of knowledge ever discovered. And it's one of 7. The 7 pedestals. 7 spheres. 7 libraries. Together, they contain the complete record of a civilization that rose higher than we have and fell harder than we can imagine. Where are the other 6? We have them. Locked away. Studied in secret. Very secret. By people with clearances so high they don't officially exist. And what have you learned? Things that terrify us. Things that could save us. Things that could destroy us. The civilization that built these chambers, they didn't just die out. They were warned. The climate change that destroyed them wasn't natural. It was triggered. By something they did. Some experiment that went wrong. Some technology that spiraled out of control. The spheres contain warnings. Explicit warnings. Do not follow this path. Do not build this machine. Do not seek this knowledge. They're trying to save us from making their mistakes. But you're keeping it secret. Because releasing it would do more harm than good. Because humanity learns through experience, not through warnings. Because if we told the world don't develop this technology, every rogue state and terrorist organization would immediately try to develop it. The only way to prevent the catastrophe is to prevent the knowledge from spreading. I stared at her. That's the most arrogant thing I've ever heard. It's survival. For the species. Who decides? Who gave you the right to make that choice? Someone must. Would you prefer it be politicians? Corporations? The highest bidder? We're scientists. Historians. People who understand what's at stake. We're not perfect. We've made mistakes. But we're better than the alternative. I don't believe you. I think you're using the excuse of protection to maintain power. To control information. To play God. Claire shrugged. Believe what you want. It doesn't change anything. You have a choice to make. Walk away or die. What's it going to be? I looked at the sphere again. And I had an idea. A stupid, reckless, probably suicidal idea. I'll walk away, I said. On one condition. Let me touch it. Let me see what's inside. Just for a moment. Then I'll go. I'll take your relocation deal. I'll disappear. I just need to know. I need to see it for myself. Claire hesitated. That's not how it works. The spheres are interfaced. They require specific protocols. You can't just touch tone. But if I did, what would happen? It would probably kill you. The information density is too high. The human brain can't process it directly. You'd have a stroke. Or go insane. Or both. But it's possible I'd survive? Barely possible. Maybe 1 chance in 1,000. I'll take those odds. No, you won't. Because I'm not letting you. And she raised the gun. Pointed it at me this time. Steady. Professional. I'm sorry, Samuel. I really am. But you're not walking out of here. She was going to kill me. I could see it in her eyes. The decision made. The trigger is about to be pulled. I dove sideways, toward the pedestal. My hand closed around the sphere. And the world exploded. Pain. Unimaginable pain. Like every nerve in my body was on fire. Like my skull was splitting open. Like I was being torn apart and rebuilt simultaneously. And then the vision started. I saw everything. All at once. The history of a civilization that spanned 10,000 years. Their rise from nomadic tribes to a continental empire. Their cities, gleaming towers of stone and crystal rising from the forests. Their technology, powered by principles I couldn't begin to understand. Their art, their music, their philosophy. Their wars. Their peace. Their triumphs and their failures. And I saw the end. The experiment. The attempt to manipulate the climate, to prevent an ice age, to extend their growing season. The feedback loop that spiraled out of control. The temperature is rising too fast. The ice melting. The seas swallowing their coastal cities. The droughts. The famines. The collapse. And I saw them building the chambers. Preserving their knowledge. Leaving warnings for whoever came next. Learn from us. Don't make mistakes. The power to reshape the world is also the power to destroy it. Use it wisely. Or don't use it at all. And I saw something else. Something Claire hadn't mentioned. The spheres weren't just storage devices. They were seeds. Designed to activate under certain conditions. Designed to accelerate the development of whoever found them. To give them the knowledge they needed to avoid the same catastrophe. But only if they were ready. Only if they'd evolved enough to use it responsibly. The ancients had programmed a test into the spheres. A psychological evaluation, running in real time as someone interfaced with them. If the person was motivated by greed, by power, by ego, the sphere would shut down. Would kill them, even. But if the person was motivated by genuine curiosity, by a desire to help humanity, by a commitment to truth, the sphere would open. I would share. Would teach. I felt the test happening. Felt the sphere examining my mind, my memories, my motivations. Every moment of my life analyzed in microseconds. Every choice I'd ever made weighed and measured. And then, impossibly, I felt it accepted me. Knowledge flooded into my mind. Not everything. That would have destroyed me. But enough. The basics of ancient technology. The principles of their power systems. The warnings about what not to do. The guidelines for safe development. And most importantly, the locations of the other chambers. The other spheres. And the central vault. The main repository, hidden beneath the Appalachian Mountains, contains archives that made the 7 spheres look like footnotes. The vision ended. I found myself on the floor, gasping, tears streaming down my face. The sphere was dark now. Inert. It had given me what I needed and shut down. Claire was staring at me, the gun forgotten in her hand. "That's impossible," she whispered. "The sphere accepted you. You survived the interface." That's never happened before." I stood up slowly. My body felt different. My mind felt different. I could think faster, see patterns I'd never noticed before. The sphere had changed me. Enhanced me. Given me access to cognitive processes that normal humans didn't have. "How many people has your organization tested?" I asked. "Dozens. Over the years. Carefully selected. The best minds. The most stable personalities. None of them survived full interface. A few got partial downloads before we pulled them out. But full interface? You're the first." "Why me?" "I don't know. But the ancients did. The sphere chose you. Which means you're important. Which means I can't kill you." She lowered the gun. Put it away. And smiled. A real smile this time. "Welcome to the Enigma Files, Samuel. You're one of us now." The Enigma Files. That's what they call themselves. The organization that had been suppressing knowledge of ancient civilization for over a century. Except, as I was about to learn, suppressing wasn't quite accurate. Curating was more like it. Claire took me to their headquarters that night. Not to kill me. Not to imprison me. To recruit me. Because I was the first person in history to successfully interface with a sphere. The first person, the ancient ones, had deemed worthy of their full knowledge. And that made me valuable. Dangerous, yes. But it is valuable. The headquarters was exactly where you'd expect a secret organization's headquarters to be, beneath a government building in Washington, D.C. Specifically, beneath the Library of Congress. Layers and layers of basement, each requiring higher security clearance, until finally we reached a level that wasn't on any official blueprint. A level that, according to all records, didn't exist. The space was massive. A subterranean complex that extended for city blocks. Laboratories. Libraries. Storage vaults containing artifacts that would rewrite every history book ever published. And people. Scientists. Historians. Linguists. Engineers. All working in secret. All dedicated to understanding the ancient civilization and preventing its mistakes from being repeated. I met the director that first night. A woman named Dr. Helena Voss. 70 years old, sharp as a blade, with eyes that seemed to see right through you. She'd been with the Enigma Files for 40 years. Had devoted her entire adult life to protecting humanity from knowledge it wasn't ready for. "Mr. Clarke," she said, studying me like I was a specimen under a microscope. "Claire tells me you survived full interface with a sphere. That's remarkable. Also deeply concerning. The spheres are supposed to kill anyone who does not sufficiently evolve. Yet here you are. Which means either you're special, or the sphere's evaluation criteria have changed. I'm not sure which possibility worries me more." "I'm not special," I said. "I'm just a guy who wanted to know the truth." The truth, Dr. Voss repeated. Everyone wants the truth until they have it. Then they realize the truth is heavy. It weighs on you. It changes you. You can't go back to who you were before. Are you prepared for that, Mr. Clarke? I don't think I have a choice anymore. No. You don't. The sphere has marked you. Changed you. Your brain structure is different now. Your neural pathways have been rewritten. You can think in ways other humans can't. See patterns they miss. Solving problems they find impossible. You're the next step in human evolution, Mr. Clarke. You're what the ancients hoped we'd become. The question is, what will you do with that power? I'll help, I said. I'll do whatever you need. I just want to understand. I want to know the whole story. Dr. Voss smiled. Then let me tell you a story, Mr. Clarke. Let me tell you the real history of North America. Over the next 3 weeks, I learned everything. The whole, impossible, world-changing truth. 15,000 years ago, during the last ice age, civilization rose in North America. Not in Mesopotamia. Not in Egypt. Not in China. Here. In the valleys and plains that would later become the United States. They called themselves something that translates roughly as the people of the long memory. And they were extraordinary. They started as hunter-gatherers, like every other human society. But something happened. Something that accelerated their development. The Enigma Files had theories but no proof. Genetic mutation, maybe. Encounter with someone from outside. Regardless of the cause, the people of the long memory began evolving rapidly. Within a few generations, they developed agriculture. Then metallurgy. Then mathematics and astronomy. Within 1,000 years, they'd built cities. Within 2,000, they'd achieved what we'd call industrial revolution. And within 5,000, they'd reached a level of technology that we haven't achieved yet. They didn't use fossil fuels. They'd discovered a different energy source. Something based on principles of physics we're only beginning to understand. Quantum entanglement. Zero-point energy. The spheres contained hints, but not the full knowledge. Not yet. We weren't ready. At their peak, 15 million people lived in their cities. They'd mapped the entire continent. They'd developed medicine that eliminated most diseases. They'd extended human lifespan to 150 years or more. They'd created art and music and literature that, according to those who'd glimpsed fragments in the spheres, made our finest achievements look primitive. And then they made a mistake. The climate was changing naturally. An ice age ending, warming temperatures, but slowly. Manageable. But the people of the long memory were impatient. They had the technology to accelerate the process. To actively warm the planet, melt the ice sheets, expand their agricultural land. So, they built the machines. Massive installations that manipulated the atmosphere. Geoengineering on a continental scale. It worked. For a while. The temperature rose. The ice melted. The forests expanded. They had 50 years of unprecedented prosperity. And then the feedback kicked in. The warming accelerated beyond their control. The ice melted too fast. Sea levels rose catastrophically. Coastal cities were swallowed. Weather patterns destabilized. Droughts in some regions, floods in others. Their agriculture collapsed. Famine spread. And as resources dwindled, war began. The civilization tore itself apart. Not quickly. Not cleanly. Over the course of 500 years, they declined. Cities were abandoned. Technology was lost. Population crashed from 15 million to maybe a few 100,000. And then, finally, those survivors reverted. Became hunter-gatherers again. Scattered into tribes. Forgot everything they'd once known. By the time Europeans arrived in the Americas, 12,000 years had passed. The descendants of the people of the long memory had no memory of their ancestors' achievements. They'd become the indigenous peoples we know from history. Still remarkable. Still accomplished. But without technology. Without the cities. Without any hint that their ancestors had once built a civilization that rivaled anything we've achieved. Almost without any hint. Because some stories survived. Passed down through oral tradition. Stories of a great person who came before. Who built wonders. Who fell from the sky. Who were punished by the gods. Every tribe had some version. The Haudenosaunee spoke of the sky people. The Cherokee told of the moon-eyed people. The Hopi described the third world, destroyed by flood. They weren't myths. They were memories. Distorted by time, but real. And the physical evidence? The cities, the structures, the artifacts? Destroyed. Deliberately. In the final years, as civilization collapsed, the surviving leaders made a decision. They would bury everything. Erase all trace of what they'd been. To prevent future generations from following the same path. From making the same mistakes. They demolished their cities. Pulverized the stone. Scattered the debris. Burned their libraries. Melted their metal. And they hid the knowledge. In chambers like the one under Philadelphia. In spheres that would only activate for someone ready to receive the warnings. Do you understand now? Dr. Voss asked when she finished the story. Do you understand why we keep this secret? I did. But I also had questions. So many questions. Why not release the warnings without the technology? I asked. Tell people about the civilization. Show them what happens when geoengineering goes wrong. Use it as a cautionary tale. We tried that. In the early days. The problem is evidence. Without physical proof, it sounds like a story. Like a conspiracy theory. And if we provide physical proof, people demand access to everything. They demand technology. They can't help themselves. Humanity sees an advanced civilization, and the first thought is how do we replicate their achievements? Not how do we avoid their mistakes. The only way to prevent the catastrophe is to prevent the knowledge. But the spheres gave me the knowledge. Partial knowledge. The basics. The warnings. You know what not to do. But you don't know how to build the machines. You don't have the detailed specifications. The spheres are selective about what they share. What about the central vault? The main repository? Dr. Voss's expression hardened. That's different. That's complete knowledge. Everything the ancients knew. The vault is sealed. Locked by systems we don't fully understand. It requires all 7 spheres to open. And we only have 6. 6? I thought you had all of them. The 7th was lost. In 1890. During Edward Clarke's excavation. Someone stole it. We've been searching for it for over a century. It's the last piece we need to access the vault. And the last piece we need to keep out of the wrong hands. Who stole it? We don't know. The investigation at the time was compromised. Edward Clarke died before he could tell us. The other members of his expedition were eliminated before we could question them thoroughly. We made mistakes. We were new. Unorganized. We learned. But the sphere was gone. I felt something click in my mind. A connection forming. My grandmother, I said. Evelyn Clarke. She had Edward's journal. His artifacts. She knew about all this. Yes. We've been monitoring your family for generations. Waiting to see if the sphere would surface. It never did. We searched Evelyn's house after she died. Before you arrive. Found nothing. But she knew I was coming. She left the chest for me to find. She wanted me to discover the truth. It's possible. Evelyn was complicated. We approached her several times over the years. I tried to recruit her. She refused. Said the truth should be free. Said humanity had a right to know. We couldn't force her. She never had the sphere, never had any actionable intelligence. She was just a guardian. Keeping her grandfather's legacy alive. I thought about the chest. About everything inside it. The journal. The map. The photographs. The coins. The skull. All of it carefully preserved. Carefully hidden. Passed down generations until it reached me. There's something else in the chest, I said suddenly. Something I didn't examine closely. Something that might be important. We drove back to Baltimore that night. Broke into my apartment. Retrieved the chest from where I'd hidden it under my bed. And examined every item under Dr. Voss's watchful eye. The journal. The map. The photographs. She'd seen all those before. Copies existed in the Enigma Files archives. The coins were analyzed. Ancient, yes. From the lost civilization. But nothing special. The skull was stored for later study. And then we found it. Hidden in the lining of the chest. Sewn into the fabric. A small metal disc, about the size of a quarter. Covered in the same symbols I'd seen in the chamber. The same writing system. Dr. Voss's hands trembled as she held it. This is a key, she whispered. A physical key to one of the chambers. We have 6 of these. 1 for each sphere we've recovered. This must be the key to the 7th chamber. The lost one. Can you read the symbols? Can you tell where it leads? No. The writing system is still largely undeciphered. We've made progress, but not enough. We'd need to interface with another sphere. Get more linguistic data. Expand our understanding. I can do it, I said. I interfaced with one sphere and survived. I can do it again. No. Not. You barely survived the first time. A second interface could kill you. Or worse. But if it works, I could read this. I could find the 7th chamber. I could recover the sphere. Dr. Voss looked at me for a long moment. Then she decided I could see was tearing her apart. We'll do it under controlled conditions. In the lab. With medical staff standing by. If anything goes wrong, we pull you out immediately. Understood? I understood. I also understood that I was risking my life. That I might not survive this. But the truth mattered. More than safety. More than life. Edward Clarke had written that. And he'd been right. They took me to one of the labs in the underground complex. A sphere was brought out. One of the 6 they'd recovered. Placed on a pedestal in the center of a room surrounded by medical equipment. Doctors stood by with syringes full of sedatives. Technicians monitored brain scanners and heart monitors. Dr. Voss explained the procedure. You'll touch the sphere. The interface will activate. We'll monitor your vitals. If your heart rate or brain activity becomes dangerous, we'll inject you with a sedative and physically remove you from contact. It'll be painful, but it'll keep you alive. The goal is to request linguistic knowledge. To ask the sphere for translation capabilities. Think of it as downloading a language pack. Nothing more. Don't go deeper. Don't try to access their technology. Just the language. Understood? I nodded. I sat in the chair they'd positioned next to the pedestal. I reached out. My fingers touched the smooth surface of the sphere. And I was back in the visions. This time, I was ready for it. The pain was still there, but manageable. Tolerable. I focused my mind. Shaped my intention. I need to understand your language. I need to read your writing. Please. Help me. The sphere responded. Not with words. With knowledge. Directly uploading linguistic patterns into my brain. The symbols are resolved into meaning. The grammar structures made sense. In the space of heartbeats, I learned a language that had been dead for 12,000 years. And then I went deeper. Not deliberately. I was pulled. The sphere wanted to show me something. Something important. I saw the builder of the spheres. An old man, ancient even by their extended lifespans. Nearly 200 years old. One of the last survivors of his civilization. He was in a chamber, deep underground, placing a sphere on a pedestal. The seventh sphere. And as he worked, he spoke. To himself. To the sphere. To whoever might find it in the future. I have hidden this one differently, he said. The others are guarded by my brothers and sisters. They will be found. They will teach. They will warn. But this one, the seventh, I have hidden where only the worthy can reach it. Where only those with pure intention can find it. The vault must not be opened by those who seek power. It must only be opened by those who seek wisdom. So, I have created a test. A gauntlet. The seventh sphere will reveal itself only to one who has already interfaced with another sphere and survived. One who has been judged and found worthy. If you see this, if you have found the key, then you are that person. The chamber lies beneath the old mountains. Where the bones of the earth are closest to the surface. Where the energy flows strongest. Seek the serpent in the stone. Follow the path of water running upward. And know that you carry the fate of humanity on your shoulders. Do not fail us. The vision ended. I was back in the lab, gasping, my body convulsing. Alarms were ringing. Doctors were shouting. Someone injected something into my arm. And then darkness. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed. Still in the underground complex. Dr. Voss was sitting beside me, looking like she hadn't slept the entire time. You went too deep, she said. You nearly died. Your heart stopped twice. We brought you back. But Samuel, you can't do that again. One more interface could be fatal. I know where it is, I whispered. My voice was raw. My throat felt like sandpaper. The seventh sphere. I know where to find it. Her eyes went wide. Tell me. The oldest mountains. The Appalachians. Somewhere in that range. There's a chamber. Hidden differently than the others. Sealed until someone who's survived interface comes looking for it. That's why you never found it. You were searching for it, but it was hiding from you. Waiting for someone like me. The Appalachians stretch from Georgia to Maine. That's hundreds of thousands of square miles. He said to seek the serpent in the stone. To follow water running upward. Those are clues. Specific clues. We can figure this out. Dr. Voss called in her team. Geologists. Historians. Linguists who'd spent decades studying fragments of the ancient language. I told them everything from the vision. Every detail. Every word. And slowly, piece by piece, we decoded the clues. The serpent in stone. There's a geological formation in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia called Devil's Backbone. It's a ridge that, from above, looks like a serpent. The rock formations there are among the oldest on the continent. Over 1 billion years old. Water running upward. There are several locations in that region where underground rivers create unusual pressure systems. Places where water appears to flow against gravity. One location in particular, a cave system called Blowing Spring Cave, was well known for its strange water behavior. We had our location. Devil's Backbone. Blowing Spring Cave. The 7th chamber was somewhere in that area. Dr. Voss assembled a team. 6 people. Specialists in cave exploration, archaeology, and ancient languages. Plus, Claire, for security. Plus, me, because I was the only one the chamber would reveal itself to. We flew to Virginia on Tuesday morning. Drove into the mountains. The landscape was beautiful. Dense forest, rolling hills, autumn colors painting the trees. It looked peaceful. Harmless. I knew better. Blowing Spring Cave is technically public land, but it's not advertised. Not developed for tourism. You must know it's there. You must want to find it. We hiked for 3 hours from the nearest road, following GPS coordinates and topographic maps. The entrance was small. A crack in the rock face, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. But inside, it opened into a larger passage. The sound of water was immediate. Rushing. Echoing. Coming from somewhere below. We descended. The cave system was extensive. Passages branching in multiple directions. Some flooded. Some were blocked by rockfall. But I felt something. A pull. The same sensation I'd felt when I first touched the sphere. Like the chamber was calling me. Guiding me. We followed the sound of water. Down, down, deeper into the mountain. The passages became narrower. The air grew colder. And then we found it. A section of wall that looked like natural rock but wasn't. The stone was carved. Smoothed. Covered in symbols that only I could read. Here, I said. It's behind this wall. The team set up equipment. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed a hollow space beyond. Large. Chamber-sized. And no natural way in. The entrance had been sealed. Deliberately. Permanently. We drilled. 4 hours. The stone was hard. Resistant. But eventually, we created a hole large enough to see through. I shone my light into the opening. The chamber beyond was pristine. Untouched. And in the center, on a pedestal carved from the living rock, a sphere. Glowing faintly in the darkness. The 7th sphere. Lost for over a century. It took another 2 hours to widen the hole, enough for a person to fit through. I went first. Squeezed through the opening. Dropped down into the chamber. The air was different here. Charged. Like electricity was running through it. The sphere pulled with light, responding to my presence. I approached slowly. Reverently. And I placed my hand on its surface. This time, there was no pain. No visions. Just a feeling of recognition. Of homecoming. The sphere knew me. Had been waiting for me. And it shared one final piece of information. One last secret. The location of the central vault. The main repository. The complete archive of ancient civilization. It wasn't in the Appalachians. It was beneath them. Specifically, beneath Mount Mitchell, the highest peak in the range. Deep in the earth, carved into the mountain's core, a vast complex containing everything the people of the long memory had known. And the spheres were the key. All 7. Brought together in a specific configuration, they would unlock the vault. Open the doors. Grant access to knowledge that could save humanity or destroy it. I pulled my hand away from the sphere. Looked at Dr. Voss, who'd climbed down behind me. I know where the vault is, I said. And I know how to open it. Her expression was conflicted. Hope and fear warring in her eyes. Then we have a decision to make. A decision that will affect the entire species. Do we open it? Do we access that knowledge? Or do we leave it buried? That's not your decision to make, said a voice from above. I looked up. Someone was standing at the opening we'd created. Silhouetted against the light. I couldn't see their faces. But I heard the gun cooking. Step away from the sphere, the voice said. All of you. Step away now. It was Claire. Claire Hastings. The woman who'd recruited me. Who'd brought me into the Enigma Files. She was pointing a gun at us. Claire? Dr. Voss said. What are you doing? What I should have done 3 weeks ago. What I've been ordered to do by people who understand what's really at stake. The vault must never be opened. The knowledge must stay buried. And Samuel Clarke must not be allowed to live. Who ordered you? Dr. Voss demanded. I'm the director. I give the orders. Not anymore. There's a council. Above you. Beyond you. They've been watching this whole operation. They know Samuel interfaced with the spheres. They know he survived. They know he's the key to opening the vault. And they've decided he's too dangerous to live. There is no council, Dr. Voss said. But her voice was uncertain. Like she wasn't quite sure. There's always been a council. The Enigma Files is just one layer. One level of the security system. But there are others. Deeper layers. Older organizations. Groups that have been protecting humanity's sleep for thousands of years. They allowed the Enigma Files to exist because you were useful. But now you've become a liability. Samuel has become a liability. And liabilities must be eliminated. Claire aimed the gun at my head. Her hand was steady. No hesitation. She was going to kill me. And there was nothing I could do about it. Except. I'd interfaced with 3 spheres now. My brain has been altered 3 times. Enhanced. Changed. I could think of ways normal humans couldn't. See patterns. Perceive possibilities. And in that moment, I perceived something about the chamber. About the cave system. About the underground river that flowed through it. The water didn't just flow. It was under pressure. Enormous pressure. The only thing holding it back was the rock. And the rock had weak points. Fractures. Places where drilling and explosives compromised the structure. I couldn't fight Claire. But I could bring the mountain down on all of us. I turned. Grabbed the sphere. Lifted it from the pedestal. The moment it left its resting place, something activated. An ancient mechanism. A booby trap, designed to trigger if the sphere was removed improperly. The chamber shook. Cracks appeared in the walls. And water started seeping through. Not slowly. Fast. The underground river, suddenly finding new paths. "What did you do?" Claire screamed. "Survival instinct," I said. "You were going to kill me anyway." The water was rising fast. Already ankle deep. The chamber was flooding. We had maybe 2 minutes before it filled completely. "Everyone out." Dr. Voss shouted. "Now." The team scrambled for the opening. Claire was still aiming at the gun, but the floor was shaking, water was spraying, and her shot went wild. I held the sphere close and ran. We climbed. Squeezed through the opening. The team was already moving, racing back through the cave system toward the surface. But the water was following us. A wall of water, roaring through the passages, consuming everything. We ran. Climbed. Crawled. The mountain was coming apart. The cave system collapsing. Ancient stone finally surrendering to pressure it had held for millions of years. I don't remember much of the escape. Just fragments. Running. Falling. Someone pulling me up. Water grabbing at my legs. Light ahead. Daylight. The entrance. We burst out of the cave as it collapsed behind us. A massive sinkhole opened in the mountainside, swallowing the entrance, sealing it forever. And we stood there, covered in mud, gasping for breath, alive. All of us except Claire. She hadn't made it out. The water had taken her. Or the collapsing cave. Either way, she was gone. Dr. Voss looked at me. At the sphere I still clutched in my arms. "We need to go," she said. "Now." If Claire was telling the truth, if there really is a council above us, they'll send more people. We need to disappear. Where do we go? Mount Mitchell. We finish this. We open the vault. We access knowledge. And then we release it. All of it. To the world. No more secrets. No more gatekeeping. Humanity gets to choose its own fate. That's insane. You've spent 40 years keeping this secret. Why change now? Because Claire was right about one thing. There are people who want to keep humanity in the dark. Who thinks we're too stupid, too dangerous to handle the truth. And if knowledge is locked away, those people have power. But if we release it, if we give everyone access, then no one has power. The truth belongs to everyone. That's democracy. That's freedom. That's worth dying for. We split up. The team scattered, taking different routes, different identities. Making it harder for anyone hunting us to track us all. Dr. Voss and I took the sphere. Drove west, then north, then east, changing vehicles, switching license plates, staying off cameras. 3 days of paranoia and back roads until we finally reached the town nearest to Mount Mitchell. We hiked to the peak at night. The sphere guided us. Through its constant low-level connection to my altered brain, I could feel the vault. Sense its location. Deep beneath the mountain. Waiting. We found the entrance halfway up the slope. Another sealed chamber. Another carved wall. But this one had 7 indentations. 7 slots. Designed to hold 7 spheres. We only have one, Dr. Voss said. No. We have access to all 7. The sphere I'm holding, it's networked with the others. Quantum entangled. They're separated by distance but connected by physics. If I place this one in the correct slot, it'll activate the others. Remotely. simultaneously. And the vault will open. How do you know that? The sphere told me. It's been teaching me. Gradually. Carefully. Making sure I understand not just what to do, but why. Making sure I'm ready. I approached the wall. Examined the 7 slots. They were arranged in a circle, surrounding a central point. And each slot had symbols above it. A label. A designation. I read them aloud, translating from the ancient language. Knowledge. Wisdom. Power. Restraint. Creation. Destruction. Balance. 7 principles, Dr. Voss said. 7 aspects of civilization. You have to place the sphere in the correct slot. But which one? I held the sphere up to each slot in turn. At 6 of them, I felt nothing. But at the 7th, labeled balance, I felt the sphere resonate. This was the right one. I placed it in the slot. And the mountain opened. Not violently. Not dramatically. Quietly. Smoothly. Ancient mechanisms that had waited 12,000 years still function perfectly. The sealed wall retracted into the ground, revealing a passage. And from that passage, light. Soft. Blue. Beckoning. We descended. The passage was long. Spiraling down into the heart of the mountain. And at the bottom, we found the vault. I can't describe it adequately. Imagine the Library of Alexandria. Now imagine it 10 times larger. Now imagine it built by people with technology far beyond ours. The vault was a city unto itself. Vast halls lined with crystalline storage matrices. Chambers containing artifacts. Machines. Art. Everything in a civilization had been preserved perfectly. And in the center, there is a control room. A place where knowledge could be accessed. Interfaced with. Learned. Dr. Voss and I stood there for a long moment, overwhelmed. This is it, she whispered. This is everything they knew. What do we do with it? We share it. All of it. But carefully. We can't just dump it on the world. We need to curate it. Translate it. Make it accessible. And most importantly, we need to share the warnings. The failures. The mistakes. So, people understand the dangers along with the opportunities. We spent 3 days in the vault. Exploring. Documenting. Using my enhanced cognitive abilities to interface with the storage matrices, to extract information, to begin the process of translation. And what we found was extraordinary. The people of the long memory hadn't just been technologically advanced. They'd been wise. They'd understood things about consciousness, about society, about the nature of reality that we're only beginning to glimpse. They'd made mistakes, yes. But they'd learned from them. And they'd left detailed instructions for how to avoid repeating those mistakes. Their energy technology was based on zero-point extraction. Pulling power from the quantum vacuum. It was clean. Unlimited. And relatively safe, if used properly. The specifications were all there. Ready to be implemented. Their medical knowledge was extraordinary. They'd understood the body at a molecular level. They could cure cancers. Repair damaged tissues. Extend life. Again, the knowledge was complete. Ready to be used. But they'd also left warnings. About the dangers of geoengineering. About the feedback loops that had destroyed them. They'd created simulations, models, showing exactly what happened when you tried to manipulate the climate on a global scale. And they'd left explicit instructions, don't do this. No matter how desperate you become. No matter how much you think you can control it. You can't. We tried. We failed. Learn from us. On the fourth day, we heard helicopters. Multiple helicopters. Circling on the mountain. Searching for the entrance. They found us, Dr. Voss said. The council. Or the government. Or whoever. We're out of time. We need to get this information out. Before they can stop us. How? We're in the middle of a mountain. No internet. No phone signal. They'll capture us before we can reach civilization. I looked at the control room. At the crystalline matrices. At the network that connected all 7 spheres. The spheres are quantum entangled. They can communicate instantly across any distance. And the Enigma Files has 6 of them. In their headquarters. Beneath the Library of Congress. You want to use the spheres as a transmission system? Exactly. We encode the data here. Send it through the quantum link. It appears there. In their secure facility. They'll have everything. The complete archive. Even if we're captured, even if they destroy this vault, the knowledge will survive. That's brilliant. Also, insane. Also, our only option. Do it. I interfaced with the control room. Used my enhanced abilities to navigate systems that were designed for minds like mine. Minds that had been altered by the spheres. I selected the most critical information. Energy technology. Medical advances. The warnings about geoengineering. And I was impressed by it. Encoded it. Prepared it for transmission. And then I sent it. Through the quantum link. From this sphere to the other 6, instantaneously. Data flooding into the Enigma Files facility. Too much data. Too fast. Their systems wouldn't be able to contain it. It would overflow. Spread to their regular networks. And from there. It's done, I said. The information is out. In the hands of the Enigma Files scientists. They'll do the right thing. They'll release it. Dr. Voss smiled. Then we've won. Whatever happens now, we've won. The soldiers found us 10 minutes later. Black uniforms. No insignia. Professional. Efficient. They took us into custody. Confiscated our equipment. Sealed the vault. And then they flew us to a facility I couldn't identify. Underground again. Always underground with these people. We were separated. Interrogated. They wanted to know what we'd found. What we'd transmitted. Where had the data gone? I told them everything. Because it didn't matter anymore. The knowledge was out. Spreading. And there was nothing they could do to stop it. They held us for 3 weeks. And during that time, the world changed. The scientists at the Enigma Files, true to their principles, released the data. Not all at once. But systematically. First, medical knowledge. Cures for diseases that had plagued humanity for millennia. That couldn't be suppressed. Governments tried. Corporations tried. But too many people had access. Too many doctors saw their patients suffering and chose to help rather than obey. Then the energy technology. Clean power. Unlimited. Free. Again, there were attempts to control it. To monetize it. To keep it locked away. But the information was out there. Basement inventors were building prototypes. Universities were conducting experiments. Within 6 months, the first functional zero-point generators were operating. Within a year, they were common. And finally, the warnings. The simulations of climate catastrophe. Detailed records of what had happened to the people of the long memory. That was the hardest information to release. Because it meant admitting we were on the same path. That our current approaches to climate change were inadequate. That geoengineering, which many scientists were proposing as a solution, was exactly what had destroyed the ancient civilization. There was resistance. Denial. Backlash. But the evidence was overwhelming. And people listened. Not everyone. Not immediately. But enough. Policies have changed. Technologies shifted. We began, slowly, to change course. They released me after 3 weeks. Dr. Voss after 4. No charges. No explanations. Just a polite escort to a bus station and a warning to keep quiet about where we'd been. I didn't keep quiet. I wrote everything down. Every detail. Every discovery. I published it online. On every platform I could find. It went viral. Millions of views. Tens of millions. The story of the people of the long memory. The story of Enigma Files. The story of the choice humanity faced. Some people called me a hero. Some called me a liar. Some called me a threat. I received death threats. Marriage proposals. Interview requests from every major media outlet. I ignored most of it. Because the story was bigger than mine. Bigger than any individual. The truth was out. And the truth, once released, is very hard to rebury. That was 4 months ago. Today, I'm sitting in my studio apartment in Baltimore, writing this account. The Chinese restaurant downstairs still makes the place smell like soy sauce and ginger. My life is still small. Still ordinary in most ways. But the world is different. Already. Noticeably. The energy revolution is happening faster than anyone predicted. Disease rates are dropping. Life expectancy is increasing. And most importantly, the conversation about our future has changed. We're no longer sleepwalking toward catastrophe. We're awake. We're aware. We're choosing. Will we make the right choices? I don't know. The people of the long memory had all the knowledge we're discovering now, and they still destroyed themselves. Knowledge isn't enough. Wisdom is what matters. Restraint. The willingness to say, just because we can doesn't mean we should. But we have something they didn't have. We have their example. We have their warnings. We know what happens if we're not careful. And that knowledge, that awareness, might be enough to save us. I still have dreams sometimes. Visions from the spheres. Fragments of memories that aren't mine. I see the ancient cities in their glory. I see people, so like us, so different from us. I see their triumphs and their failures. And I hear the message they left for us. The message encoded in every sphere, in every chamber, in every artifact. You are not alone. You are not the first. You are part of a pattern that extends across time. Learn from us. Rise higher than we did. Become what we could only dream of becoming. The future is yours to create. Choose wisely. I don't know if I'll ever interface with a sphere again. The risk is too high. 3 times was probably 3 times too many. My brain is already changed. Already different. Sometimes I think too fast, see too much, understand too clearly. It's isolating. Lonely. I'm not quite human anymore. I'm something else. Something between what we are and what the ancient ones were. But I'm here. I'm alive. And I have a purpose. To tell this story. To keep the knowledge spreading. To make sure the truth, once revealed, stays revealed. That's the real mystery. Not what the ancient ones left behind. But what we'll leave behind. What our legacy will be. The Enigma Files are closed. The mystery is solved. But the future? The future is wide open. And it's ours to write. Choose wisely. Choose bravely. Choose together. The truth is out there. The truth is here. The truth is in all of us. And the truth will set us free. I'm back in my apartment, 3 months after I wrote that last entry, and everything has changed again. I thought the story was over. I thought we'd win. I was wrong. The knock came at 2 in the morning. Loud. Insistent. The kind of knock that means trouble. I opened the door to find Dr. Voss standing there, looking 10 years older than the last time I'd seen her. Her hair was disheveled. Her clothes were wrinkled. And her eyes had that wild look of someone who hadn't slept in days. "They're dying," she said without preamble. "Everyone who interfaced with the spheres. Everyone who survived the initial contact. They're all dying." My blood went cold. "What are you talking about? Come with me. Now. We don't have much time." I grabbed my jacket and followed her to a car idling at the curb. Inside was a woman I didn't recognize. Younger. Maybe 30. She looked sick. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. Dark circles under her eyes. Trembling hands. "This is Dr. Amy Foster," Voss said as we drove. "She interfaced with one of the spheres 6 weeks ago. Survived. Seemed fine. And then, 3 days ago, she collapsed. Internal hemorrhaging. Organ failure. We've been treating her, but nothing works. And she's not the only one. There are 4 others. All show the same symptoms. All dying. What's causing it? We don't know. But Samuel, listen to me. You interfaced with 3 spheres. 3 times. If this is what we think it is, if there's some kind of delayed reaction, some kind of biological incompatibility, you're at the highest risk. You could be next." I looked at Amy in the back seat. She was staring out the window, not speaking. Just breathing. Each breath seems to take enormous effort. How long does she have? Days. Maybe less. The deterioration is accelerating. Whatever's happening, it's not a disease. It's not an infection. It's like her body is rejecting the changes. Like the enhancement the spheres gave her is now killing her. We drove to the Enigma Files facility. Down into the underground complex. Past security checkpoints I'd never seen before. Into medical bays that looked like something from a science fiction film. And there, in hospital beds, were 4 other people. All of them are dying. All of them fading before my eyes. "We've run every test we can think of," Voss said. "We've analyzed their blood, their brain tissue, their cellular structure. And we've found something. The spheres didn't just enhance them. They altered them at a fundamental level. Rewrote their DNA. Changed the basic operating system of their cells. And now, for some reason, those changes are becoming unstable. The new code is degrading. Taking the rest of the body with it. Why? Why would the spheres do this? We don't know. Maybe it was never meant to be permanent. Maybe the enhancement was supposed to be temporary. Or maybe we're just not compatible. Maybe the ancients could handle these changes because they'd evolved differently. But we're baseline humans. Our biology isn't ready. I sat down heavily. My mind was racing. Processing. When does it start? How long after interface? For these 5, it was between 4 and 8 weeks. You interfaced 3 months ago. You should already be showing symptoms. But you're not. You're healthy. Which means either you're different somehow, or you're next. I thought about the visions I'd had. The way the ancient man had spoken about the 7th sphere being hidden for someone worthy. Someone with pure intention. Someone who'd been judged. The spheres chose me, I said slowly. They tested me. Each time. Evaluated my motivations, my character, my intentions. And they accepted me. What if that's the difference? What if the people who are dying, they are exposed to the spheres without that evaluation? Without that compatibility check? Voss's eyes widened. The first 6 spheres we recovered. We've been studying them for decades. We've had dozens of people attempt interface. Most died immediately. Some survived briefly. But we were forcing it. Using technology to maintain the connection. Overriding the sphere's natural protocols. These 5, they were part of our research program. Carefully monitored interfaces under controlled conditions. You bypassed the test. You gave them the enhancement without the evaluation. And now their bodies are rejecting it because they were never meant to have it. My God. We did this. We killed them. Can it be reversed? Can you remove the changes? We don't know how. The alterations are woven into every cell. There's no way to separate the new DNA from the original. And even if we could, the trauma of reversal would probably kill them anyway. Amy spoke from her wheelchair, her voice barely a whisper. There might be a way. In my interface, before the connection was severed, I saw something. Instructions. Protocols for managing the enhancement. Like a maintenance program. The ancients needed it too. Even they couldn't sustain these changes without regular renewal. Renewal? I asked. Reinterface. Every few months, you're supposed to touch the sphere again. Brief contact. Just enough to stabilize the changes. To refresh the code. Without that, the enhancement degrades. The body rejects it. You die. The room went silent. Everyone processes the implications. Samuel, Voss said quietly. You interfaced 3 months ago. You should be approaching the critical point. But you've had no contact with any sphere since then. Why aren't you sick? I thought about it. And then I realized. The 7th sphere. I still have a connection to it. A quantum link. I can feel it sometimes, even now. Like it's still there, in the back of my mind. Maybe that's enough. Maybe maintenance doesn't require physical contact. Just proximity. Connection. The others don't have that. They interfaced under artificial conditions. With spheres they have no natural bond with. The connection was severe when we ended the sessions. They're cut off. Dying. So, reconnect them. Let them interface again. It's not that simple. The spheres won't respond to them now. We've tried. It's like the spheres know they're incompatible. They've been rejected. Blacklisted. Amy coughed. Blood appeared on her lips. There's another way. The vault. The central repository. It has medical facilities. Advanced systems. I saw them in my vision. The ancients used them to manage the enhancement. To heal themselves. If we can get there, if we can access those systems, maybe we can save ourselves. The vault is sealed, Voss said. We transmitted the data, but the physical location is under military guard. They've locked it down. Nobody gets in. Then we break in, I said. We don't have a choice. These people are dying. If there's even a chance the vault can save them, we must try. Voss looked at the 5 dying people. At Amy, who probably had hours, not days. At the others, who weren't much better off. And she made a decision. All right. We went back to Mount Mitchell. We access the vault. We find whatever medical technology the ancients left behind. And we pray it's enough. We moved fast. Assembled a team. Medical personnel to care for the dying. Security to deal with the military presence. And me, because I was the only one who could interface with the vault systems. We took medical transport. Drove through the night. By the time we reached North Carolina, Amy had slipped into a coma. The others weren't far behind. Their bodies were shutting down. Systematically. Irreversibly. Mount Mitchell loomed in the darkness. And surrounding the entrance to the vault, exactly as Voss had predicted, was a military perimeter. Fences. Guards. Vehicles. They'd locked it down tight. We'll never get past them, one of our security people said. We don't need to get past them, I said. We need to get beneath them. I explained my plan. The vault wasn't just directly under the entrance we'd used. It was a massive complex. Sprawling. And it had to have multiple access points. The ancients wouldn't have built a single point of failure into something so important. I closed my eyes. Reached out with my mind. Felt for the quantum connection to the 7th sphere, still hidden somewhere in the mountain. And through that connection, I felt the vault. Sensed its layout. Its structure. There, I said, pointing to a location 300 yards east of the main entrance. There's another way in. A secondary entrance. Sealed but accessible. We hiked through the forest. Found the spot. And sure enough, hidden beneath layers of earth and vegetation, was another carved stone wall. Another sealed entrance. How do we open it? Voss asked. Blood, I said. The knowledge had come from the sphere. Downloaded during one of my interfaces. The ancients keyed secondary entrances to biological signatures. Family lines. Descendants. I'm related to Edward Clarke. He interfaced with one of the spheres back in 1889. His DNA is in the system. Mine should be close enough. I pressed my hand against the stone. I felt a sharp pain as something pierced my palm. Drawing blood. Testing it. Analyzing it. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the stone began to move. Sliding aside to reveal a narrow passage leading down. We entered quickly. Carried the dying people on stretchers. Descended into the vault for the second time. The complex was different from this entrance. More utilitarian. These passages were service corridors. Maintenance tunnels. We passed chambers filled with equipment I didn't recognize. Rooms containing artifacts are still waiting to be catalogued. And finally, following my connection to the sphere, we found what we were looking for. The medical facility was enormous. A hospital that could have served thousands. And it was still functional. Lights activated as we entered. Systems came online after 12,000 years of dormancy. The ancients had built things to last. In the center of the facility was a chamber containing 7 platforms. Each platform surrounded by crystalline structures that hummed with barely audible frequencies. Healing beds. That's what the sphere was telling me. Advanced medical systems are designed to work with enhanced individuals. To stabilize them. To repair the damage caused by the alterations. Get them onto the platforms, I ordered. Quickly. We lifted the dying people. Placed them on the platforms. And the moment they made contact, the crystals began to glow. Beams of light, visible spectrum but also something else, surrounded each person. Scanning them. Analyzing them. And then, slowly, beginning to heal them. I watched Amy's vitals on a nearby display. Her heart rate stabilized. Her blood pressure normalized. The hemorrhaging stopped. Whatever the crystals were doing, it was working. How long will it take? Voss asked. Hours, I said. The knowledge was flowing from the sphere. The system has to reverse the degradation. Rebuild the damaged cells. Restabilize the genetic alterations. It's a slow process. Will they survive? I don't know. They're in bad shape. But this is their only chance. We waited. Hours passed. The team took turns resting, eating, and monitoring the patients. And slowly, impossibly, the 5 dying people began to recover. Color returned to their faces. Their breathing deepened. Their brain activity increased. Amy opened her eyes after 6 hours. Looked around. Saw me standing nearby. Did it work? She whispered. It worked. You're going to be okay. She smiled weakly. I saw them again. The ancients. In the healing process. They showed me things. Explained things. Samuel, the enhancement isn't a curse. It's a tool. But like any tool, it requires maintenance. Regular interface. Connection to the spheres. Without that, we're cut off. Dying. But with it, we can live for centuries. Like they did. How do we maintain it? The spheres are scattered. Locked away. We can't access them whenever we need. We don't need to. The vault has what we need. A permanent interface station. A place where enhanced individuals can come to refresh their connection. To stabilize their changes. The ancients built it for exactly this purpose. It's been here all along, waiting for us. Over the next 2 days, all 5 patients recovered fully. The healing platforms had done their work. But more than that, they'd completed the enhancement process properly. What had been unstable was now stable. What had been temporary was now permanent. And I learned something else. The vault systems had tested each patient during healing. Evaluated them again. And this time, with proper protocols, all 5 had been accepted. They are truly enhanced now. Legitimately. Safely. But there was a catch. They would need to return to the vault every 6 months. To use the healing platforms. To maintain their enhancement. It was a tether. A requirement. You couldn't take the gift and walk away. You had to commit. You had to return. These changes everything, Voss said. We thought the enhancement was available to anyone. That anyone could interface and gain these abilities. But that's not true. It's selective. Controlled. Limited to those the spheres accept. And even then, it requires ongoing maintenance. Ongoing connection. Maybe that's by design, I said. Maybe the ancients learned that unlimited enhancement was dangerous. That not everyone should have access. So, they built in restrictions. Safeguards. You have to be worthy. And you have to stay worthy. Otherwise, the enhancement kills you. It's elitist. It's survival. They watched their civilization tear itself apart when everyone had too much power. They're trying to prevent that from happening to us. Voss didn't like it. I could see the conflict on her face. The democratic part of her believed everyone should have equal access. But the pragmatic part understood the danger. Understood why limits were necessary. While the patients recovered, I explored the vault more thoroughly. Used my connection to the sphere to access areas we hadn't seen before. And I found something remarkable. A library. Not books or data. A library of consciousness. Preserved minds. Thousands of them. The ancients, in their final years, had done something extraordinary. They'd found a way to preserve themselves. Not their bodies. Those had died. But their consciousness. Their memories, personalities, knowledge, everything that made them who they were. Uploaded into crystalline matrices. Stored in the vault. Waiting. They're still here, I told Voss. The people of the long memory. They didn't die. They transformed. Transcended physical form. They're living in the vault systems. Aware. Thinking. Waiting for someone to talk to them. Can you communicate with them? I think so. The interface protocols include methods for accessing preserved minds. It's like opening a communication channel across time. Do it. Ask them why. Ask them why they built these restrictions. Why they made the enhancement so difficult to maintain. I accessed the systems. The channel opened. And I spoke across 12,000 years to people who'd been waiting for this moment. The response came not as words but as pure understanding. Direct knowledge transfer. And I learned their story. The real story. The complete truth. The people of the long memory had indeed achieved extraordinary things. But their greatest achievement wasn't technology. It was wisdom. They'd learned, through bitter experience, that power without limitation leads to chaos. That enhancement without restriction leads to destruction. They'd tried unlimited enhancement. For 3 generations, anyone who wanted the abilities could have them. And it had nearly destroyed them even before the climate catastrophe. When everyone can reshape reality with their thoughts, when everyone has the power of gods, society becomes impossible. Every disagreement becomes a war. Every conflict escalates to apocalyptic levels. They'd almost wiped themselves out in civil wars that made conventional wars look like playground scuffles. So they'd implemented restrictions. Limited enhancement to those who demonstrated wisdom. Character. Self-control. And they'd build in the maintenance requirement to ensure ongoing evaluation. If someone became corrupt, became dangerous, they'd lose access. The enhancement would fade. They'd return to baseline. It had worked. For 5,000 years, they'd maintained a stable civilization. With enhanced leaders. Enhanced scientists. Enhanced artists. But it's always limited. Always controlled. Always evaluated. And then the climate experiment had gone wrong. And even with all their wisdom, even with all their safeguards, they hadn't been able to stop the catastrophe. Because some mistakes are too big. Some consequences are too far-reaching. So, they'd left the vault. The spheres. The warnings. Hoping that the next civilization, when it rose, will learn from them. I would take the enhancement slowly. Carefully. Would avoid the mistakes. They're asking us a question, I told Voss. They want to know what we've done. What choices we've made. Have we released the knowledge responsibly? Have we implemented safeguards? Are we following the path of wisdom or the path of power? Voss thought about the last 3 months. About medical knowledge released worldwide. About the energy technology spreading across the globe. About the warnings being heeded, mostly, but not universally. Tell them we're trying, she said. Tell them we're imperfect. Tell them we're struggling. But we're learning. We're growing. We're not repeating their mistakes. At least not yet. I conveyed her message. And I felt something in response. Not quite approval. Not quite disappointing. More like hope. Cautious hope. The preserved consciousness showed me something else. A vision of the future. Not a prediction. A possibility. What humanity could become if we chose wisely. If we used the knowledge carefully. If we enhanced selectively and governed ourselves responsibly. I saw a world transformed. Not overnight. Not dramatically. But gradually. Over generations. Clean energy powering every home. Diseases eliminated. Lifespans extended. And a small number of enhanced individuals, the wisest and most capable, guiding humanity through the transition. Not as rulers. As servants. As stewards. It was beautiful. Hopeful. And terrifyingly fragile. One wrong move. One bad actor with too much power. One experiment that went wrong. And the whole thing could collapse. Just like it had for the ancients. We're standing on a knife's edge, I said to Voss. The knowledge is out. Technology is spreading. We can't put it back. But we can still choose how we use it. We can still implement the safeguards. We can still limit enhancement to those who should have it. Who decides? Who chooses who's worthy? They do. I gestured to the crystalline matrices. To the preserved consciousness of the ancients. They've been evaluating candidates for 12,000 years. The spheres are just tools. Extensions of their judgment. They test everyone. They decide. And they've been right so far. That's still elitist. Still unfair. Some people will have abilities that others don't. Yes. Just like some people have perfect pitch and others are tone deaf. Some people are naturally intelligent, and others struggle to learn. Nature isn't fair. Never has been. We've just gotten used to pretending it is. The enhancement isn't for everyone. It can't be. But it can be for those who need it. Who can handle it? Who will use it to help rather than dominate? Voss struggled with this. She'd spent her whole life believing in equality. In fairness. In everyone having equal access. But she was also a scientist. A pragmatist. And she could see the logic. Could understand the necessity. We need oversight, she finally said. If we're going to do this, if we're going to allow selective enhancement, we need systems. Checks and balances. Transparency. People need to understand why some are chosen and others aren't. They need to trust the process. Agreed. And we need to make sure the chosen don't become a ruling class. Don't use their abilities to oppress or control. They need to be servants. Helpers. Teachers. We need a new organization. Not Enigma Files. Something transparent. Something accountable. Something that operates in the light. Over the next week, we will build it. A framework. A structure. We called it the Continuity Council, named after the ancient civilization's protocol for preserving knowledge across time. It would be public. Its membership would be known. Its criteria for enhancement should be published. And anyone who wanted to be evaluated could apply. The council would maintain the vault. Operate the healing platforms. grant access to the spheres for those who passed evaluation. And it would be overseen by a rotating board of scientists, ethicists, and representatives from every continent. No single person or group would have absolute control. It wasn't perfect. But it was better than secrecy. Better than the old way of doing things. We released the proposal publicly. Published it online. Invited comment. Criticism. Debate. And to our surprise, most people supported it. They'd seen medical advances. They'd experienced clean energy. They'd read the warnings about climate catastrophe. They understood that careful management was necessary. That not everyone could have access to everything immediately. There was opposition, of course. Religious groups who thought we were playing God. Radical egalitarians who demanded equal enhancement for all. Corporate interests who wanted to control the technology. And the shadowy council that had tried to suppress everything. They were still out there, still fighting. But the momentum was with us. The truth was out. The knowledge was spreading. And people were choosing wisdom over power. Slowly. Imperfectly. But choosing. 6 months after we'd opened the vault, the Continuity Council held its first official session. Representatives from 70 countries attended. Scientists. Leaders. Ethicists. Philosophers. All gathered to decide how to manage humanity's inheritance. I was there, not as a leader, but as a witness. As someone who'd interfaced with the spheres and survived. As a bridge between the ancient world and the modern one. Dr. Voss opened the session. We stand at a crossroads. The people of the long memory left us a gift. Knowledge that could save us or destroy us. Technology that could elevate humanity or tear it apart. And they left us a choice. Will we use their gift wisely? Will we learn from their mistakes? Will we become what they hoped we'd become? The debate lasted for days. But in the end, the framework was adopted. The Continuity Council would manage access to enhancement. The vault would remain open but protected. The spheres would evaluate candidates, and the council would provide the interface. And every 6 months, those who'd been enhanced would return for maintenance. For evaluation. For renewal. It wasn't a perfect system. But it was a start. I underwent my own maintenance session that week. 6 months after my last interface. I returned to the healing platform. Connected with the sphere. And felt the enhancement stabilize. Refresh. The connection that had been degrading slowly, subtly, was restored. Strengthened. And I received something else. A message. From the preserved consciousness. From the ancients themselves. You have done well, Samuel Clarke. You have honored your ancestors' legacy. Edward Clarke sought the truth and died for it. You sought the truth and survived it. And now you are helping your people navigate the dangerous waters between ignorance and knowledge. Between limitation and power. This is the hardest path. The narrow path. But it is the right path. Walk it carefully. Walk it humbly. And know that we are with you. Across time. Across death. We are still here. Still watching. Still hoping. Your civilization is young. You are children playing with tools you barely understand. But you are our children. Our descendants. Our hope. Do not fail us. Do not fail yourselves. Become what we could not. Rise higher than we rose. Survive where we fell. This is our last gift. Our final message. Use it well. The connection faded. I found myself back in the healing chamber, tears streaming down my face. Around me, others were having similar experiences. Enhanced individuals connecting with their ancestors. Receiving wisdom from across the axons. This was what the ancients had intended. Not just knowledge transfer, but mentorship. Guidance. A conversation between past and future. Between those who'd failed and those who might succeed. Over the following months, I settled into my role. Not as a leader. Not as a decision-maker. But as an interpreter. A translator. Someone who could access the vault systems, communicate with the preserved consciousness, and help others understand. I worked with scientists trying to replicate energy technology safely. I consulted with doctors implementing the medical advances. I advised the Continuity Council on protocol and policy. And I continued to write. To document. To share the story with anyone who wants to hear it. The world continued to change. Clean energy reached developing nations. Diseases that had killed millions were eliminated. Life expectancy increased. Quality of life improved. And slowly, carefully, a small number of enhanced individuals began to emerge. Scientists with expanded cognitive abilities making breakthrough discoveries. Artists create works of unprecedented beauty. Teachers capable of connecting with students in profound ways. But there were problems too. Some people couldn't accept that they weren't chosen for enhancement. Some nations tried to develop their own enhancement programs, bypassing the safeguards. Some corporations attempted to steal the technology. And the shadowy council, the one Claire had mentioned, they continued their campaign to suppress everything. Assassinations. Sabotage. Disinformation campaigns. We lost people. Good people. Dr. Amy Foster was killed in what was officially ruled a car accident. We knew better. 2 members of the Continuity Council disappeared. 3 scientists working on the energy technology died in a lab explosion that was too convenient to be accidental. The war between those who wanted humanity to evolve and those who wanted to keep it contained wasn't over. It had just entered a new phase. But we won. Slowly. Because truth, once released, is very hard to kill. Because knowledge, once shared, continues to spread. Because people, given the choice between ignorance and understanding, between limitation and possibility, eventually choose growth. Not everyone. Not immediately. But enough. 1 year after I'd opened my grandmother's chest, I returned to her house in Millbrook. The place had been sold. New owners. But I'd gotten permission to visit the attic one more time. To see the place where it had all started. The chest was gone. The journal, the artifacts, all of it was in secure storage at the Continuity Council's headquarters. But the space remained. The dusty attic where I'd found the impossible and chosen to pursue it. I stood there for a long moment, thinking about choices. About the moment when I could have walked away. Could have reburied the secret. Could have lived my small, ordinary life. I didn't regret my choice. Not for a moment. But I understood the weight of it. The responsibility. The burden of carrying truth that most people weren't ready for. Edward Clarke had understood that burden. Had carried it until it killed him. Evelyn understood it. Had protected the secret until she could pass it to someone who'd use it properly. And now I understand it. I was part of a chain. A lineage. A tradition of truth seekers and knowledge keepers stretching back 12,000 years. The people of the long memory weren't gone. They were here. In the vault. In the spheres. In the enhanced individuals who carried their genetic legacy. In the knowledge they'd preserved. In the warnings they'd left. They were alive in every person who chose wisdom over power. Who chose truth over comfort. who chose to learn from the past rather than repeat it. And as I stood in that attic, I felt them. All of them. The preserved consciousness. The ancient ancestors. The modern enhanced. All connected. All parts of the same pattern. The same story. Humanity is rising. Falling. Rising again. Learning. Growing. Evolving. Not smoothly. Not easily. But inevitably. This is the story I wanted to tell. Not just about the discovery. Not just about the artifacts and the chambers and the ancient civilization. But about the choice. The ongoing choice that every generation faces. Will we pursue truth even when it's dangerous? Will we accept responsibility even when it's heavy? Will we grow even when growth is painful? The Enigma Files, the real enigma, isn't what the ancients left behind. It's what we'll do with it. How we'll use it. Whether we'll rise higher than they did or fall harder than they fell. That's the mystery that matters. That's the question that remains open. And every one of us, enhanced or baseline, young or old, powerful or ordinary, we're all writing the answer. Every day. Every choice. Every action. So I'm asking you, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever your role in this unfolding story, what will you choose? Will you choose ignorance or understanding? Limitation or possibility? Fear or hope? The ancients are watching. Waiting. Hoping. And so am I. Because the story isn't over. It's not even close to over. We're in the opening chapters of something vast. Something that will echo across time just as the people of the long memory story echoed to us. We are the inheritors. The continuers. The next iteration of the pattern. And what we build, what we create, what we become, that will be our legacy. Our gift to those who come after. Our message across time. Make it a good message. Make it a wise message. Make it a message of hope and growth and careful, deliberate, responsible evolution. The Enigma Files are open. The mysteries are revealed. The truth is out. Now comes the hard part. Now comes the building. Now comes the choice. If this story has awakened something in you, if it has resonated with the truth in your own heart, then our journey together has just begun. Subscribe to this channel. Share this story. And prepare yourself. For there are many more echoes to be heard, many more mysteries to be solved, and a great, glorious future to be won. The age of humanity is dawning. And it will be an age of wonders. Please subscribe for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The truth is out there. The truth is here. The truth is in all of us. And together, we will write a story worthy of being remembered. Worthy of being preserved. Worthy of echoing across time to generations we'll never meet. This is Enigma Files. This is the real mystery buried in time. Not what was lost. But what can be found. Not what was destroyed. But what can be built. The future is calling. The ancients are watching. And the choice is ours. Choose wisely. Choose bravely. Choose together. The story continues. Always.